breathing.
If you move it further away, like that.
All right. Because I'm a loud breather.
I've had to learn myself.
Yeah. So I'm pushing 330 now. So.
Oh man.
Everything I do is loud.
330.
Yeah. It was post coronavirus. I got
did you catch it?
Yeah, I got it about a month ago.
Oh no way.
And it gave me superpowers on the one hand. I went to the gym 6 days later, hit a PR on strict pressing, and then a couple days after that I was in Texas. I had a deadlift PR, beltless, raw. The only problem was it just kind of left me open and more susceptible to getting sick. So when I went to Romania last weekend, I got some kind of stomach bug and just felt like shit the whole contest.
Well, that's not helpful.
Yeah.
Part of the joys of international travel to compete,
exactly. Huh? Exactly.
Fuck. Man, I'm not Romania. Where? I'm not even sure where we are, Travis. Where is Romania?
You go the Black Sea.
Okay.
It's over on the western shore.
So like in the Balkans or
Kinda,
what was?
I think it's Balkan area. Serbia. You got Serbia, Bulgaria, just south of it. Hungary is just north of it. And those are all, I think, east of like Poland and Germany.
How old are you now? Because I'm 30. You're 40.
Just turned 40 in August.
Still going for it, man. I'm fucking impressed, dude. I'm impressed, man. And, it's funny now, right? Because, like, we've been around a long time.
Yeah.
And, like, the faces of people who've been around a long time are less and less. Man, I'm so glad that I got to spend a few years doing strongman because I got to meet you guys and Roger and go out and train at the unit and do all that like early in that thing. And then Andy getting to go train with you guys and then him going to Vladivostok for that Russian trip.
We got to that contest 4 hours before it started. We get to the hotel, we drop our bags off, we go up there like, we've got food for you, no problem. And we have these shitty white bread, mayonnaise, and like cucumber sandwiches. Like, what the hell is this shit? Like, there's nothing on this. Like, mayonnaise and cucumber.
It's so funny in Europe that that's what it's very like that whole side of the world is like we have food and it's like it's cold cuts.
Yeah.
What are we doing?
This is the snack we eat between food.
Everyone in the room's 150 kilos.
That's what I always wonder is how do those guys get so big?
Dude, those guys are. Well, over there, you guys competed against. Well, Misha didn't compete.
No, he was emceeing.
That's right. That's right. He's made a fun transition into whatever it is he's moved into.
Well, he does a lot of emceeing, and then he's doing some boxing.
Yeah.
He tells me he hates boxing.
I'm sure.
He hates it.
We're willing to bet, though, there's a chance of a fun paycheck currently with it.
I think he's doing all right with it.
Well, you know what I mean, though? Like, with everything going on with celebrity boxing or half-celebrity boxing or any of that, there's money to be made.
Absolutely.
And, hey, man, if people want to be entertained, far be it from me to tell them this is wrong.
I'm with you on that. That's a good way of putting it.
Look, man, if for some reason an alternate timeline that they were to start handing paychecks out for strongman doing really weird stuff, like, it's what they'd be doing. We'd be like, finally.
Yeah. Well, you can finally make a living doing just strongman. You know, that's one of the things being around the sport for a long time has kind of showed me a little bit is how to make a living off of that sport. And it's not through prize money.
No.
It's, you got to segue and use it as promotion.
That's it.
And that's,
it seems to be the only way really from any of the strength sports to do it. I mean, that's how luckily this whole thing kind of got figured out.
Oh, from your Highland Games?
Yeah, from doing the Highland Games thing and wrote a couple books, and then that turned into apparel, which is now YouTube content and everything across the board.
Yeah.
So
you just kind of let it grow.
It's work.
So how did you let it grow? That's kind of a question I always ask people is, you got your hands in a lot of cookie jars.
Yeah, now.
Yeah. So did you just see a door, open it, and go through?
Well, so I wanted to write a program for the Highland Games just because no one had.
I think I read that book.
Yeah, and at that point, like ebooks were big.
Yeah.
That had kind of really just started cracking off. 531 was doing well. I don't remember if Cube Method was out or not, but like during that point when Brandon wrote his, But I wrote a book and did okay for the Highland Games stuff, and then wrote another one on the actual throwing, and then just was like, put one out a year was kind of the goal. And so it was a training manual, a throwing manual, and then I did like a general strength version of how I trained for the Highland Games for regular folks who aren't trying to compete, right? And in that, I had talked about the philosophy behind the brand, and then we started making a few shirts, and now 8 years later, we're still making apparel.
Okay. So it just started with a few shirts.
Started with a few shirts, man. And
that's hats, shorts, pants.
And been really lucky with it. Whatever I guess I tapped into, people were interested in it, resonated, and were able to keep making it.
Seems like you hit that market at just the right time.
I think so.
The shirts and the apparel thing, that blew up.
It did really well, and I mean, I look at it now and feel like I'm probably 2 years late.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I mean, I know the people that got in 2 years before me, and it's such a head start. It's way better than trying to start now. But,
yeah.
But yeah, see that old adage, right, of like, you know, the best day to plant a tree is 20 years ago. The next best day is right now. So stop wondering about where we should have started earlier and get started.
You know, people keep asking me because it's so popular for strongmen to have their own shirts out. And people keep asking me about shirts. And, you know, it's like you say, jumping into it right now, it's like, well, shit.
Well, I feel like there's two different things. So there's either you're going to make apparel that supports your strongman career, right? Like, so it would be like Travis Ortmayer shirts or whatever they would be, and they're supporting Travis, or you have an apparel line, and those things to me are different.
I see what you mean.
So like one is like nothing I sell says Matt Vincent on it.
Yeah.
And hopefully the business can run without me being a face of it whatsoever.
Got you.
At some point.
And so the other one, they're buying into the athlete.
Yeah. Look, I mean, like if you're buying, you know, like whatever the stuff Brian Shaw, the straw strength stuff, like.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not ever going to be a Nike.
Fair point.
You know what I mean? Like it's a name of a dude. It's that type of thing, and it works well.
Like strong and pretty.
Sure.
Yeah.
That's a guy's thing.
Yeah.
But you know, it's not going to be an apparel brand. I mean, I guess maybe technically it could. Fucking weirder things have happened. Yeti sells a ton of apparel in their ice chest. I don't know what people are into these days.
I didn't know that.
They sell a ton of apparel, man. They're fucking killing it.
They can start selling coffee in no time.
Yeah. Coffee game, man. And yeah, that started as simply like I had a friend who was roasting, and I wanted to see if I could make my favorite cup of coffee, and I did. And so now we sell it.
That's kind of badass.
You know?
So you got your favorite.
Yeah.
And thought you'd share that with the world.
Or try.
Okay.
There's a weird thing that comes like with manufacturing in the apparel brand, like kind of once we got to a point that we started making things, like more cut and sew stuff. And then you're like, oh, so I can make whatever I want now. Because you figure out, like, there's just a recipe to make whatever you want. And there's just a shit ton more steps depending on how complicated it is.
And then you could apply that with
anything.
Different, yeah, okay.
Yeah, but like, okay, coffee. So first thing I need to probably figure out beans. And then probably your best move is find a coffee roaster you like and then start just working with them.
Okay.
As they know where to find all those parts already.
I guess that's kind of like, a successful businessman hires the people. He doesn't have to know all the parts of the business. He hires the people that know. That
is 100% what's going on here. I have very little idea. I am an idea and concept guy. The actual business sides of shit. Yikes. No, man. But yeah, dude, it's crazy. Like, I mean, I think back to the strongman years of all that. Like, it was an interesting time in the sport, kind of when we all got into it, because like social media hadn't really come about.
Yeah. Facebook was new. Yeah.
Well, at least as far as everyone using it.
Yeah. I still remember MySpace.
Yeah, same.
The place to be.
Yeah, same, dude.
Facebook was for old people.
And it's changed everything. Yeah. Like, it's really, really wild how it's changed everything. I mean, without social media, I'm not making a living doing this.
Well, I think it's part of it. It is exactly how I make a living.
Right.
I get all of my clients, 90% of them through Instagram.
So online training, stuff like that.
Online coaching, yeah.
So you do it just one-on-one, or have you put together any groups, or are you?
It's all individual, but I have different ways. I've got a course that I kind of guide people through my method. So they're getting coached on how I do what I do. So I'm teaching them the process.
Yeah.
And then I have people that are a little more, contest specific. They want coaching for specific goals.
Like on
and
10
all
weeks
that.
out.
And then, yeah, exactly. So then we have another route for that.
Gotcha.
And it's all done online.
Yeah. No, it's great. And I know Bonnie does a majority of that too, is basically how she makes a living is a lot of online coaching.
Well, in person kind of changed with COVID. I had a few clients, and I had a Strongman Saturday class. COVID happened, and you had all these assholes that were trying to rat people out for doing anything outside. So the gym kind of got
what a weird thing.
The code enforcement called on them a few times. They got like $3,000 or $4,000 fines. One of which was because I had been seen training with my rocks and my fingers and stuff outside. And there was like that 6-foot rule at the time. And I'm like, I know I was 6 feet away from my training partners because we got a 7-foot barbell and the closest we got was either side of that thing. So we have it measured out. But anyway, the gym got fined. And so they changed their policy for trainers. You had to be certified. You had to have insurance. And then you had to have your own separate business license.
Come on, man.
And I'm like, I jumped through the first 2 hoops, and then it was going to be like $500 or $600 for the business license.
Yeah, but you don't have to operate that way anymore because of the online space. Like, I don't need your fucking
building. That's exactly
building.
what it was. That's exactly why I went the route I went with. It just everything in me was screaming, "Fuck this!
Well,
I don't want to do this."
And the beauty of that is, right? Like, if you're doing one-on-one clientele work, you can only work by the hour.
Yeah.
And online,
I can do 15 times as much work. Yeah, absolutely.
And help more people.
I can help more people. But there is the one drawback is, the visceral being in the moment with somebody as they're cruising through the process, and then you take them to a show and watch them crush it.
Oh yeah,
now, I get that feeling when I'm training people online, but it's not quite as.
No, you're not in the blood. You're not in it. You're not in it every day.
And I mean, I love seeing my people succeed. That to me, it's almost as awesome as when I win.
Dude,
it's right there.
It's an interesting thing, right? Like, because now that I'm full blown retired from competing, it's interesting where you find that focus spike. And like, that's what I feel about, like, getting ready to compete, when I notice that feeling of like, oh, this matters.
Yeah.
That like,
right there.
Yeah. That like, yo, I'm paying attention. Everything fucking matters right now, right? Like that feeling. And that's really tough to find outside of competing. And for me, like, I started noticing it doing speaking engagements.
Nice.
And I notice it for the podcast, and like what I've been able to focus on is what it is for me is it's the ability to perform when I say to.
Yeah.
Like as an athlete and as a person. And
so
like
you got a little bit of pressure, and then yeah.
That's the good shit, dude. Like that little anxiety that's like, I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. Like, fuck, man. We lean into that one.
It does kind of say that too. It's
for
a little
sure.
bit of, I'm not sure if I want to do this. It's like standing on the edge of a cliff, getting ready to jump into a lake or something. Like I know I can survive this, but everything in me is saying, step back.
No, I'd always catch myself really excited pre-contest, and then always having a moment of like, okay, I'd like to be at the end of this. But like, I'd like to see where the cards fall.
Yeah. Yeah.
But man, I love getting to compete, and clearly you the same.
Yeah.
I mean, you've now done it for forever, dude. I mean,
almost
how long?
20 years of strongman.
20 years of professional strongman.
With a 5-year hiatus.
5-year hiatus, which we'll dive into here. I mean, dude, it's a tough road. Now, and that's what I remember, and I was really excited to talk to you about. I remember you were training and competing and kicking ass, and then I remember hearing, I guess, a weird issue at World's Strongest Man when it was hosted out in the Carolinas.
Oh yeah,
with you, and then that was, I guess. Then from there, I guess you'd kind of just got off track. Well, for lack of better terms.
I think the issue at Worlds was, two-sided. I'm going to take full responsibility for it. There was a woman that worked with IMG who made my life miserable, but I'm the one who allowed it to get in my head. And it was kind of the culmination of, the last year of competing and forcing my body to perform after breaking my ankle the previous year, World's Strongest Man, in the finals.
Yeah.
And, that ankle injury didn't really heal.
But they don't. That's the problem with ankles.
Oh, dude, it sucked. I remember a couple months after Worlds, I'd gotten the invite to the 2011 Arnold Classic. And one of the events was the axle cleaner press. So I went in to train. And mind you, I'm 2.5, maybe 2 months out from the Arnold itself. And we have 405 pounds or whatever for reps.
Sure.
And I went in and I got to like 285 and couldn't press it. I couldn't get any leg drive into it.
Because of the ankle.
And I was so frustrated, so just... At that time, I would let my rage kind of overcome, and I would take it out on myself, so I would beat myself further into the ground.
It's a young man's game.
Yeah. But I kind of... And this is where I'm lucky, because my mental fortitude, I guess, came in, and I went home, and I said, look, we're going to do this again tomorrow. If you fall apart again tomorrow, we're calling it. We're done. If you can go in and perform, get your shit together, Travis, we'll go ahead and do this. And so I went in, I hit a 400 axle, pretty solid, pretty easy. I just got my shit together and turned everything on. But, I turned everything on mentally, that's great, but at what cost to my body?
Sure.
I kind of overrode some of the signals that were
a few
screaming at me to, hey, just sit this year out.
Red lights and alarms are going off, and you're like, we're just tape over everything.
Exactly. You can't duck it, fuck it, right? And, I was held together by duct tape at that point. So I pushed through the Arnold. I was miserable. That ankle killed me and set me up for the whole year being miserable.
So, and push through, at this point, are you... I know, running gear to train for something like that's one thing, but gear doesn't get rid of the shit that's broken.
Oh, no, especially because it was, I think it's called an avulsion fracture. It was one of the tendons from my lower leg muscles snapped off the side of my foot and took a chunk of the bone with it.
Cool.
Yeah. So, no gear is going to help your bones grow faster.
Dude, when I was trying to heal my knee, man, I was fucking throwing everything I could at it. And it gave me a really weird stance on how I feel about the use of growth hormone, because I never noticed much from it. But also, I had a bunch of bone damage. That's not what growth hormone helps with. Nothing does.
And at that time, I didn't even play with growth hormone, and peptides weren't really a thing.
No, that all came about relatively in the last 7 or 8 years. Yeah,
they really exploded. I think right before I kind of fell into the darkness, so around 2012 maybe.
Okay.
But, I was always at the forefront of figuring out the new things, so I was probably a couple years ahead of most people.
Well, yeah, because, I think it's really hard to get an idea of where the strongman sport was at that time, right? When we were diving into it, you couldn't buy equipment anywhere.
No,
everything
you had to go
got
down
made.
to a fabricator and say, here's what I want. Now let me imagine this, if you will, and then you try to draw it out on a piece of paper.
Right, like a Conan's wheel. How complicated that is to tell a guy who doesn't know what you want. No, it needs to hold motorcycles on a platform, and we walk around with it
was. It held a dirt or a four-wheeler, built for hold a four-wheeler by Grandpa Frank, some good old boy in North Texas.
Man,
he actually made my stones for me too.
Yeah.
I had to drive 6 hours one way to pick equipment up from him and then drive it back in the same day.
I remember doing all of it, dude. I loved that point too. When I had the full strongman set up in my garage was really fun.
See, that's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
We had it at that storage unit.
Right,
the fabled unit. Not just a clever name. It's actual storage unit.
Yeah, storage unit, man. And Josh Thigpen around. He's still kicking around.
Yeah. Yeah, I just did a seminar with Josh.
Right on, man.
Maybe a month ago.
That's great.
Texas, yeah. He looks great. Still strong as shit.
Crazy freak. Just freak.
I think dude. I can't remember if he or I got into strongman first.
It was really around the same time.
Well, we saw each other at 2003 Amateur Nationals. And, he was announced to be from Houston. I was announced to be from Houston. We're like, wait a second. There's another guy in my city that trains this shit?
Who's this guy?
I need to know that guy.
We need to make friends immediately.
Exactly.
What equipment do you have?
That's exactly what it was. Let's kind of combine forces here. What
It's just kids and toys at this point. Like, do you have this part of the deck? We could fucking have a whole training day.
We get a whole thing. I'm pretty sure he brought weights out a few times, so we have enough to do farmers with or something.
Yeah, man. I remember doing it all that way. It was cool. Like, it felt like we were on a thing, and you had to travel to, like, dude, Cypress, Texas for me from Baton Rouge was
4 hours easy.
For Baton Rouge, easy almost
maybe
5.
Yeah.
Right? And like getting to go there once or twice a month to go try stuff out.
Yeah.
It was great.
Yeah. Well, and it brought out people with passion. It wasn't so easy to find, so the person who's kind of half-assing it doesn't find their way into the unit. It's only people who really want to be there that show up, and we always made sure the people that really wanted to be there were the ones who came back, because we'd put them through the Unithon. This is my dad's sick invention. We always used his Suburban for truck pulls.
Yep.
And he could ride that brake and make it. I pulled 100,000-pound airplanes that were easier than him riding the brake on that thing. And so they'd have to pull it around the unit, which was like 1,200 feet.
Oh, God.
And it didn't matter how long it took. You just had to finish. And if you didn't finish, you weren't welcome back.
Not welcome back. No, man.
So that was his invention. And all that time, we had maybe 2 guys that didn't finish, and we didn't even have to tell them not to come back.
They're too embarrassed, yeah.
Yeah, they were gone. They were hightailed it out of there, didn't want any part of that.
Oh, man. So you're fighting with this ankle, get through the Arnold.
Yeah. Well, see, as far as gear and stuff to help heal it, killing the pain, none of that helped. But I was on painkillers at the time. I had been for about a year at that point.
Like pretty aggressively?
Increasingly so.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's typically how they go.
Well, it all started with a friend of mine's father was a nurse practitioner. He happened to work at a pain management clinic. And he's like, hey, come on in. We'll get you set up. These will help you with your training and, what you're doing. God dang, you guys could do with some painkillers. And so I got in. And I'm like, and this was one of the first times I remember my intuition having this little thing that comes up in the back of my head. It was like red flag, and I could feel like the little flag pop up. And I was like, this is a bad idea, Travis. And then, the front Travis was like, nah, man, this is going to be fine.
It'll just help.
Yeah, we'll be good. It's no big deal. Well, the first prescription that they wrote was for 120 10-milligram hydrocodone. Soma, which
many.
is a muscle relaxer that increases the effectiveness of hydrocodone, and Xanax.
Three of those together.
3 things. Like, that is a serious fucking stack.
That's a big ramp up from like, this could help with some training.
Exactly. Exactly.
You need a couple 800-milligram ibuprofen. Not
Here's
nuclear strength.
120 Vicodin, double strength Vicodin. But so, I can't put it on him at all. What do I think what he did was, irresponsible?
I would say unethical.
Yeah,
perhaps
it was irresponsible, unethical.
Do you find it predatory?
In my circumstance, no. I wasn't intended to be a repeat customer, and I don't know his intention, but I know a lot of those places were very predatory.
Yeah.
You look at the clientele, and you're like, 90% of you, probably more, don't need this medication.
Well, a lot of people that run through those pain clinics, right? Like, somebody will pay homeless people to go through and get scripts.
Yeah.
And then they just collect all the scripts on the back end, so then they have oxys to sell.
That's exactly it.
Yeah.
And, and I think that the whole country has started to crack down on that because it really was that big of a deal. It's not okay.
It's fucking heroin.
Basically.
Yeah, no, it's not even basic. It is.
That's what caused the heroin epidemic.
Yeah.
Heroin
got easier to get.
It's exactly it. Painkillers became so hard to find. Everybody was like, I need some kind of opiate. Heroin's the next thing I can find. I thought about that.
Come on.
I'm thanking God I never, ever in my life came across any heroin. But at the time when, it was like getting harder to get the scripts, or at least to get enough, because my tolerance got so friggin' ridiculous. I was taking, in 2011, I had gotten to about 8 of those Vicodin 10 milligram, along with 5 somas at a time. I'd do that 3 or 4 times a day.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah. So, I mean, it had gotten extreme.
I mean, are you able to keep any weight on? Like,
I leaned out a lot.
Because, like, I couldn't eat at all, like, going through after surgeries. Like, I feel like shit on muscle, like, on pain meds.
You could see in 2011 and 2012 how lean I was. And 2010, I had started to lose weight. I was, 340 in 2009. I had worked with Nathan Payton for Worlds in 2009. I started to lose some weight, and by 2010, I was about 310, 311 at the Arnold, and I was, a brick shit house. I was lean, but not too lean. I was just all power. It was probably the best shape I'd ever been in to that point. But, with upping my dose of painkillers throughout that year, and then even more so in 2011, after the broken ankle, I started to lean down. I think by 2012 at the Arnold, I was 285 pounds.
That's a difference in body weight?
Yeah, with about 9% body fat.
And going into the Arnold, yeah. One of the lighter shows, yeah, it's great.
Exactly.
Yeah, the Arnold show's so ugly.
But, the major problem that comes with painkiller addiction, and I say addiction because it was full-blown addiction.
And look, I mean, I'm fascinated in all this, dude, because I got really lucky. Like, through the 9 knee surgeries, I never ran into an issue. The only thing that ended up for me is I've switched to cannabis completely and smoke a shit ton of pot now.
Well, and you know what? That doesn't have near the side effects.
No, it's also legal.
It's also legal. So, yeah, there's that small aspect.
Right.
Yeah, it just, I guess after the first few weeks of being on it was my first little, knock on the door saying, hello, there's an issue here. And then I just medicated over that. Because I noticed when I ran out, I was like suddenly really wanting to get more. And
oh, man.
And I had no idea what it was at the time. I mean, looking back, it's so obvious now, but in the moment, it's like, no, I just want to have more. There's not a problem here.
Right. Right.
But then several times I tried to stop. And, when you're taking that many opiates, the withdrawals are horrendous. It's fucking nasty. And there's a couple times that I made it pretty far through, but the thing that really kicked me back on was anxiety and going out into the world without that mask on.
Ooh.
And that was it was kind of like having to step out the door after being inside for 6 months, It was a weird feeling.
Really strange.
Yeah, so that's how I jumped back on every time.
Is it just made it easier to go back to life?
Yeah, exactly. And
that's fascinating. That's a really fascinating one because, I mean, like, I think we all can medicate a little here and there, whether that's fucking caffeine or cannabis or CBD or anything else. I mean, anything that's going to affect the system is a chemical you're putting in for a change.
Yeah, mind-altering substance, just minutely or extreme.
Right. So, I mean, man, that correlation I can make because, fuck, man, I drink a shit ton of coffee. You know what I mean? And, like, it ain't apples to apples, but I'm not stoked if I'm not getting it.
Well, what is it, Mormons that don't put any mind-altering substance into their body?
I think there's a lot of religions that like that idea, and I'm sure there's sects of all of it that do.
That are real strict.
Yeah. The Mormon guys that I'm friends with, I wouldn't say are that strict.
I think I know Mormons like that.
Yeah. Which is about how I feel about the Catholics I'm friends with. They aren't that strict. Yeah,
so, there is something to putting no mind-altering substance into your body and facing the world 100% as you are. Because there's varying degrees of, like you say, caffeinated version of you, the, the pot smoking version, the wine drinking version.
There's a lot of different masks, man, and there's a lot of different filters you can put over the world you're going to go in.
Yeah. Yeah. And filter is a word I like to use a lot because, one of the things I did learn during that descent into hell was this world that we look at has so many layers. You and I could be looking at the same picture and see a completely different story. And the next person could see an even different story than that. And, that's something I can get into in a little bit farther into this tale, if you will.
Perspective's huge.
But,
just simple perspective, right? That's what you're talking about. Even, your take on coming here to do this today versus mine, even though we're sharing this experience, my point of view is looking at the corner of a house. Yours is looking that way. Despite that we've shared a thing, our memory of it will be very different, and neither of which match that view of the camera, right? So, perspective's huge.
Yeah.
And then mix in being at the right time to do a thing. Now, did depression start setting in, or did you find that was something that was already there?
I think depression was varying levels, varying degrees of it. Obviously, you don't go full-blown depressed, and you're not full-on happy. There's a big area in between.
Yeah.
And that's how things like that also sneak up on you. You don't, if you're not constantly aware, and when you're on a bunch of painkillers, you're not constantly aware.
You're the opposite.
You don't notice little things like that happening. And one of those little things that I didn't notice was my relationship straining with my wife at the time. Because painkillers don't just numb your body.
No, that's everything.
They numb your emotions. They numb everything. So we kind of, started growing apart, and she was from England.
Right.
So she was here, I say here, she was in Houston with me. We had a son at the time, and she was away from all her family. She was 3,000 miles from the nearest family. So I think that kind of weighed on her, having a new son, a new baby, not having any family close by.
That's heavy.
Yeah. My parents were close by, but that's not the same, obviously, especially for a girl.
No.
So,
especially a girl from another country,
yeah. Yeah. Parents are in England. It's not just a quick jaunt down the street to get over there.
No.
But our relationship had strained. She may have changed a little bit after the birth of our son.
As expected.
That's going to happen, exactly. But me also being young and stupid didn't quite understand what was going on. So I had a lot of things that I have learned and I wish that I knew.
Well,
then.
It's an interesting midlife crisis.
And it was, 28, 29 years old.
Dude.
Early.
Yeah.
That's the only time I've been early for anything in my life.
Well, good. You got it out of the way. That's a fucking plus, man.
That's exactly right.
I for sure went through one too, man. I can try to define it as other things, but between the knee going bad and then the chronic pain and depression and, not being able to train due to, body restrictions, that gets really weird because that's where I manage stress.
And here's the thing that I learned is you trained as an athlete to be an athlete. So you've got, here's your life, here's your full schedule. You take that chunk out. Now you have a vacuum. You've got all this empty space. And the easiest thing for most people to fill that with is substance abuse or depression or something, because, you look in the mirror and you're used to seeing an athlete and a driven, focused individual. And now you look in the mirror and you don't know that person in front of you.
No, it's very and hard with that too, right? Is mentally I'm not hurt. Mentally, my brain says we can still do all the things.
Oh, yeah.
The mechanics all still work. I know how to fucking throw.
Yeah.
But it got to where, I couldn't go up or down stairs. I couldn't walk more than about 200 yards a day. And so,
oh, man.
I knew going into any of these sports that there's a time that we don't compete in them anymore. That's how it works.
Yeah.
I wasn't ever prepared to give up being an athlete and like being able to physically do things. And that one kicked the shit out of me. And I got really lucky to get out.
Well, you found focus in creating something else.
Sure, but even having just that and not and like the chronic pain that was with the knee and like and just dude, the lack of ability. Like I mean, the last time I competed was 2016. I finished second in the world, and then by March of 2017, due to a couple surgeries, like I couldn't go up and down stairs anymore.
Oh man.
And there wasn't light at the end of the tunnel. It was like this is how we walk. Dude, I traveled with a cane for a few years.
Jesus. That's pretty rough.
And
I can see that
it's
being
eye-opening, dude.
Really difficult to be a fully capable world-class athlete. And now you got a cane kind of hobbling around.
It felt like I had spent a really long time mastering guitar and got good at it, and then you took my hands.
Oh, yeah.
And so like, fuck, all of this information I've learned is useless now. And it was really, really tough, man. And that was a big thing for me, trying to figure out that identity, and then what do you do with that energy? And then for me, for sure, there was a big fear on the back end of that of like, so now we just do normal shit? Like we just have to do normal life stuff? Like what other people do?
Yeah.
Like I don't know that I'm cut out.
Yeah. I feel that 100%, man.
Fuck, man.
There's working in an office or in front of a computer all day. That's great for some people. Some people are cool with that. It's not me. I can't do it. I just can't do it.
No, and we've been lucky enough to get to travel and compete and be on these stages and have all that.
It was kind of hard to go back to something else.
Yeah.
You know, I mean,
it gets tough to find something that's going to crank the system up enough that I have to give a shit.
It's a fair point.
And that to me got tough because I like that. I like the test. I like the moment.
Like we were talking about at the beginning. Yeah, that's kind of what you go for. That's the excitement. That's the thrill. It's, you know, winning and competing is great, but it's that moment before where you feel the most alive.
Now, you're taking stuff because it's still allowing you to train.
Yeah.
When has that now pivoted to now we're just using drugs?
Oh, yeah. So, I mean, I could say I was taking stuff so it was allowing me to train all through 2011 and 2012. But let's be honest, it was allowing me to train and not just lose everything at a little slower rate.
Yes. Yeah. You're not making progress.
Yeah, I wasn't making a whole lot of progress, that's for sure. But let's say, you know, 2011 happened with the whole thing with World's Strongest Man, and you know, there was just a little bit of a falling out with, you know, whatever.
You got a DQ, right? Like,
yeah. And I mean, I don't want to go into too much detail about it, but it wasn't fair. It wasn't fair at all. And well, yeah, shit. I just don't know how World's Strongest Man would feel about it if they heard. I think they would be okay, but whatever. You know what?
I don't know what they're doing at this point anyway.
They gave me a drug test that said that I failed for amphetamines.
Well, they test every year, right? Like this is one of those things that's a little on the, like most people don't realize that they do test, but it's more of a health screen. They're not.
They test for cocaine, amphetamines, anything that's going to give you a heart attack while wearing a sponsor shirt.
That makes sense.
Yeah. But they gave me a test in the middle of the competition, and it was all this one woman's doing. And then suddenly I failed this test, and I didn't fail that test.
Do you think it was just like perhaps they could see something was going on and they're like, we need to do something?
Well, this is where I take full responsibility. I was in a bad mood.
Sure.
I was in a bad mood. I was cranky, and you know, the athletes were kind of getting hosed on a lot of stuff that year, food and you know, just being at the show, like not having enough water.
And this was in Charlotte, right? North Carolina?
Wingate University, North Carolina.
Okay.
Yeah. So I spoke out about the way the athletes were being treated, and you know what? They made an example of me.
Fuck.
And, you know, I'm not saying this against anybody or anything except that one woman. She just had it out for me. She didn't like my wife. They never got along. And 2008, 9, 10, it was always miserable, you know, because they didn't get along. And so my wife would be whining about how she's mistreating her. And I'm like, dude, I'm trying to compete,
dude.
You know, so anyway, I got this test. Said that I popped for amphetamines, which was not the case. That was inaccurate. People probably believe that it's accurate because of where my life went years later.
But I assume, like, whenever I remember seeing that, I just assume that it's what I pictured that test being was that they did a test, and if they found anything, whether it's ephedra, shit that everyone's fucking taking, ephedra, caffeine, anything outside of a normal level, it essentially gives them the liability reason to be able to do what they want to do.
Yeah. And that's kind of what I'm thinking it was maybe pre-workout had some 1,3-dimethyl,
sure,
something like that in it.
There's just enough for them to have a reason. Yeah,
and there was no retaking the test. There was no, excuse me, differentiating.
There's no appeal process.
Yeah, there was. Yeah, she flat out told me, "No, it's a TV show. Screw you." Sorry, not sorry.
and I think, look, and that's a thing a lot of people who don't know the world don't get. Like, World's Strongest Man's a TV show. Yeah. And there's a lot of fuckery involved with World's Strongest Man.
Well, I went this year, 2021. 10-year gap. I set a new record for the longest time between appearances. They were amazing.
Really?
They were amazing. The staff, the coordinators, all the people there.
Is it Darren Sadler and Bryce and them still run it?
They're a part of it,
Okay.
A big part of it. But there's IMG Media and, you know, all the guys there. They were absolutely incredible. I could not have been more shocked, pleased, surprised, just happy about my experience there. It was awesome. They really looked out for the athletes.
Good.
They really, you know, they took time with the interviews. It wasn't just like a, hey, quick,
say this,
here's your name, and say that. Yeah, it was like an in-depth interview, and it was like a breath of fresh air. The experience
that's really
was totally different.
That's really cool to hear.
I mean, I can't say enough about how well they ran all the pieces of it.
Yeah.
You know, behind the scenes, front of the scenes, the show, the events, just night and day difference. Just absolutely.
Feel good to be back doing another Worlds?
It was awesome, man. It was, you know, it kind of gives me this at a loss for words feeling. I don't know how to explain.
Well, I mean, for sure, during that dark bit, like, I mean, there's no doubt that you have enough time to be like, okay, so that's done. And probably make a little bit of peace with, like, so that time of life of doing those things is done.
Well, you know, there was always, and I keep going back to this. I got a little guy that's in the back of my head here that talks to me, takes notes about what Travis out here is doing. And in the back of my mind, that little guy, there was always this 100% certainty that I was going back.
Hell yeah.
It was a small, tiny little voice at sometimes, like this little pinprick of light in the darkness. You know, I'd almost given up hope several times. Sorry.
Oh, that's all right.
But it just, you know, he was always kind of taking notes, and like I was going through that whole experience to come out the other side with something big. You know, it was there was a lot of people that were definitely in my head and in my ear saying, "Oh, you'll never go back. You'll never do this. You'll never do that." And that's,
people don't know, dude.
Well, that's that misery loves company. They were other people who were at the bottom in their life, and when they see you try to rise up and become something better, that puts pressure on them.
Well, because it exposes their shit.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
People get really weird about that, man. It's a weird idea that success or happiness is a scarcity commodity to a lot of people.
Yeah.
And to see someone come out of it, man, it's tough for people in it who are in the darkness.
That misery loves company, and you know, it's that relationship like a codependency almost. Don't call me on my bullshit. I won't call you on your bullshit. We'll both stay down here in the muck. And you know, you rise up and it pisses them off, and
Well, I mean, how many stories you hear of addicts who find other addicts and then they just dwell in it?
That's exactly
together,
it.
right?
That's codependency. That's very unhealthy. It's very
To divorced people, to depression, people that lose kids, any of this, they find someone with that same void to fill.
And in those cases, it can be a good thing to find somebody who, I guess, understands you on a level that other people outside of that.
Yeah, the
certain
addiction
thing.
part gets tricky of it.
Yeah, because you're bringing each other down.
Yeah.
But, to go back to 2011, 2012, when things started getting really out of hand and really shitty, I always start my story with, do you remember the worst moment of your life? Do you remember the worst day you ever had?
Yep.
You do.
Yeah, I got it.
So there's some people that don't.
Yeah, I got it.
And it's a powerful feeling, isn't it?
No, mine was realizing I'm going to get a divorce.
That was the worst one.
Yeah, so far, man. Like the sports and all that type of stuff was fun. It's fine. And getting hurt and all that. And mine was a really slow transition into like chronic pain. And then it was get rid of that and the sport didn't matter anymore. The realizing that relationship after 13 years was done, that was really tough. It was really tough to have that conversation. But superpower that comes with it is I can have hard conversations.
Well, that's kind of what you realize when you face some serious adversity. Like for me, I know I'm tough to kill.
Fucking hard to kill, man.
Really hard to kill.
Yeah.
My worst moment in my life came after, my wife and I kind of splitting apart. We really grew apart. My addiction I was stuck on painkillers, fully stuck. And then a couple months before this moment, let's say during the summer of 2012, she went for about 6 weeks to England, her and my son, and she went to go see her parents. And during that time, I was kind of left to my own devices. And at that point, I couldn't stand training. No, I'd already gone through over a year of having this broken ankle that I was trying to compete on. And in the Arnold 2012, I had torn just a little bit of my quad a week before. So I had to compete with yet another injury that was, frustrating. Frustration built up, and I'm like, fuck this. I'm done. I don't want to compete anymore. So, like we talked about earlier, where you've got that huge chunk of your life that you now have a void in. And stupid shit is what fills that void.
Stupid shit fills it quick, man.
Really easy.
Hot damn does it.
For me, that was an ex-girlfriend had contacted me. We'd talked back and forth a little bit, and she had gotten into crystal meth.
Oh, right.
Yeah. So for years, she had been kind of on that, selling it, stuff like that. And she offered to send some to me. She wasn't living in Houston. She was a few hours outside of town, so she overnighted some. I'm home alone.
Sure.
Fuck it. Yeah, let's party. All right. And so I started out smoking it, and then quickly, because I was left to my own devices, and I had all these extra needles.
Yeah, of course.
In my house. I think I'd actually just started trying peptides, so I had insulin syringes.
Okay, so you got insulin
So
pens.
yeah, that's why I had them. So I've got these insulin syringes, and I'm looking online, trying to figure out how to mix things up and shoot it.
Do you have a moment there where you're like, what are we doing?
Oh, it gets worse. It gets worse, man. I'd gotten the crystal from her and then a little bit of Coke from a friend of mine, and I'm like, well, let's just see what happens.
Yeah.
So I mix it up. I go on this website. It's like, do this, don't do that, do this. I'm like, done. I got it loaded, ready. I take my phone. I put it on my lap. I open it. I dial 911.
Just ready to go.
Just ready to go. Exactly.
Oh my God.
And it kind of occurs to me. I'm like, Travis,
what the fuck are we doing? We've done some dumb shit in our lives, and we've never had to do this.
Exactly. Oh, my God, man. But I went for it anyway, and that's when the wheels kind of came off. And
new door.
Yeah, descent into madness quickly.
I don't have a lot of experience with, I guess, with amphetamines. I mean, I don't even have enough experience with cocaine to tell you much about it. Other than I don't think it's a great fit for my personality. Other than I know that much.
Yeah, well, that's a good thing.
Yeah, I don't think it would benefit me. So I mean, was that just an immediate change, and so is it painkillers still? Is it
I was
just
still
a constant?
on painkillers at that time. One of the things that I noticed during that time was if I was high on meth, I didn't need them.
Oh.
And I thought to myself for a brief moment,
We have cured our opiate issues.
Exactly it, man. I can kick this one. I finally got this monkey off my back. I don't need these. I can get over this anytime.
Right.
Well, that line of thinking led me to, another 4 years of hell.
Wow.
So anyway, that 6 weeks was up, and we're looking at, towards the end of the year.
So she's still just been sending stuff now?
Well, I didn't use any of that when my wife had gotten home.
Okay,
It was during
you
that
enjoyed
6
it for
weeks.
6 weeks
Yeah.
and then tried to not do it?
Had a hankering. Like, this is something I want to keep doing.
When do you leave town again?
It's exactly. I remember thinking shit like that too, man.
So are you
God.
do you notice you're doing shit at that point? Like, are you picking fights to get alone time?
No, but I would just kind of take alone time.
Yeah.
And here and there, wherever I could, I would find a way to sneak away and do that. I would say it wasn't, so much that it was interfering any more or less with my life
At that point.
But I mean, if I'm 100% honest, any amount is interfering with your life.
Well, sure. And you're already in a rough spot. It wasn't like this was a drastic left turn for what was going on.
Yeah, we were already on rocky terrain.
Yeah.
So, our relationship held on a little bit, at least as far as I thought it was holding on. We came to a point where we were going to move to England. She was taking my son over first to get a house, find a place, because we had just gotten a settlement from a car accident, so she was going to buy a house.
Okay.
So she went, and this leads me to the worst moment of my entire life, and it was November 25th, 2012. And that's the day that I took them to the airport. And that guy in the back of my head, that little intuition was screaming, red flags, stop, no, this is wrong, it's bad, terrible idea, whatever you got to do, stop the car, turn around. But Travis out here was like, no, it's going to be fine, man, I trust her. So dropping them off at the airport, and I can still see it clear as day. I'm getting their suitcases out, and I give my son a hug. He's 3 years and 3 weeks old at this point. And he's got his little Cars hat and his Cars backpack on. And he's excited as hell because he's on an adventure. He can't wait to go.
Yeah.
And I just see it in her face, what's really going on, but I'm trying to ignore it. And, I remember giving him that last little hug. He just feeling that tiny little 3-year-old boy body, and his little smooth skin up against my face. And then they turned around and walked through the doors into the airport. And that moment shattered my heart. And I have this scar across it. I could still feel it now. It is so deeply ingrained that, it's a pain that you don't ever forget. But I've learned to be grateful for it because it makes all the other pain in my life less significant. I've increased my threshold for great experiences and horrific experiences.
You don't often get one without the other.
There's
night and day.
Seems like there's always balance, right?
Yeah.
So that moment, I was driving home after that. And I remember thinking, you know what? This hurts so bad. Travis, just go get fucked up for a week.
Is this, I mean, they're gone.
And I know that she's not really planning on me joining them anytime soon. I'm still trying to rationalize it. I'm still thinking I'm selling the house, and you know. So,
she's just done what needed to be done to get over.
Out. Yep. She,
yeah.
But
she's aware of what she's dealing with at this point.
I think not fully, but enough.
Enough that she knows something's up. She knows something's being hidden, and she knows she's not being communicated with.
Yeah. So, she did what she had to do, and I still feel like she went about it kind of shitty, but what do you do? You got a 3-year-old kid, and you're not in your country, and No,
and look, man, I think it's the empathy of that too is like so few people are given a rule book or guidebook on how to handle really hard situations, and I think trying to do the best you can and empathy, right? Like that's been a big one that I've got to work on. And, with you even already being someone that's accountable, being like, I fucked this up, that's how it goes. She's dealing with a drug addicted, really big guy. She doesn't know what the fucking answer is.
Yeah.
And right or wrong, best decision, worst decision, who fucking knows at that time, dude? It's a lot to deal with for anyone.
It's what happens. Right or wrong doesn't really matter. It is what it is. And at that point, I wish that later on she had been, I wish she would, answer the phone so I could talk to my son. I wish I could see pictures of him, and she's kind of cut things off, and it made it impossible to have a relationship with him because everything I send over gets sent back, so I know that they moved.
Right.
And I can't figure out where. And I'm not going to force things, because if I try to force things, she's the type of person that fights back with everything and gets really nasty, and it's not worth it to have my son go through that. So, but anyway, so after that airport drop off, I said, you got a week to do whatever you want, Travis. Just go get fucked up, because this pain is killing me. And that week turned into 4 years.
Jesus Christ.
Just one little thing after another.
Man.
Went worse and worse and worse. But I did kick the painkillers.
So starting meth took care of that.
Yeah. I don't recommend that being a course of action.
So that was pretty much from that point on, though, that the painkillers weren't really a big deal.
Pretty much.
And that took care of the detox, too.
Yeah. Yeah, I had never had. Yeah, that was the thing. It was like I never had any withdrawals, and I had a new mask to wear, so anxiety was
a different one.
It was really weird how that worked, but I just exchanged one monkey on my back for a bigger, nastier one that had sharper teeth. But and here's something for people listening to this. How do you get out of an addiction? Because I didn't have any help, and I didn't know who to ask. I didn't know where to go.
Well, embarrassed. There's a lot of that. There's a ton of shame that goes with it.
That's
too. Of like,
why
fuck,
I do
man,
what I do.
I can't tell anyone. I can't.
We got to remove the taboo from it, because people fuck up, man.
Dude, people fuck up a lot.
It's okay to fuck up. You just can't. It's not okay to continue to fuck up once you know that you're doing it.
Yeah, that's the tough one. Once we know that this is what it is, we can't pretend it isn't anymore.
Exactly. Well said. So one of the things I started doing during this period, I started smoking cigarettes all the time. So, I kind of got a small nicotine addiction.
Interesting habit to pick up.
Well, I just wanted to destroy myself.
Sure.
That's, any means necessary.
Yeah.
So,
all right, what can you take?
Yeah, it's exactly. So, self-destruction is a weird thing. And I guess, to segue for a second, I remember kind of wondering, how could somebody ever do that to themselves? Because I watched my sister go through anorexia, and she was an alcoholic.
Wow.
Like, why can you just put food in your mouth? What the hell is the problem? So I think it was kind of the universe's way of saying, well, you wanted to know.
Well, meanwhile,
here you go.
You as a person who's disciplined enough to train the way you have, to shape your body, to do these type of things, right? But that doesn't apply over here.
Yeah.
Like for whatever reason.
Yeah, it's total.
That switch can't flip.
That's exactly it. You have no training for that area. You're trained over here, and if you're trained over here, you don't even realize that this exists.
No.
And I think it was kind of the universe was like, well, we're going to make you a more complete person. We're going to have to tear you to pieces first. But now you're going to know what it's like to be the disciplined athlete. You're going to know what it's like to be someone who went through hell and struggled and had to fight their way out of it. So, I got my question answered when I was referring to my sister and how could you destroy yourself like this? Well, that's how. It's something that you can't control. It sneaks up on you.
Now, do you and your sister talk about it at all, or how's she? Or
I wish. She got over the anorexia. She did not get over the alcoholism, and she died a couple months ago.
Sorry to hear that, man.
Yeah,
I'm really sorry to hear that. Alcohol is a fucking gnarly drug, dude.
It sucks, and any drug limits a person from growing, and when you're stuck like that, the world just becomes kind of a tough place.
And as far as drugs go, I think there has a lot to do with intention. And if you're taking something to disconnect, it's a different thing than taking something to find connection.
That's a fair point.
Right. Like, I don't drink anymore. It just simply wasn't a chemical that works really well with me anymore. And that's really how I look at it. I look at every chemical to be the same. Whether does it help or hurt me? Whether that's, I look at testosterone with TRT as something I need to rebalance hormones, or for me, pot seems to work well for focus and ADD issues, and then some, light nagging inflammation. And as a plant that doesn't have an addictive trait, sweet.
Yeah.
As a thing that I can lay on the couch and smoke with my chick and watch a movie and giggle and connect, sweet. But as long as I'm not taking something as a fuck this, I don't want to be here anymore.
And that's, you're right. It's the mindset.
Yeah. And that intention, right? Like that's the intention of it. It's a really fucking tricky one. And man, alcohol gets really heavy. It's a very strange thing to me that as a culture, that's the one we've backed as the integral part of society.
And it is at every level. Yeah. In every aspect.
It's fucking weird to not drink places.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, sorry, I just don't. Like,
so you don't drink at all?
I don't not drink.
Okay.
I mean, I'm fucking sure as fuck far from sober. But I don't enjoy any of the mind alteration that alcohol has anymore. I like a drink, but I'm no interest in being drunk.
Fair enough.
Just the parts of the personality that shine through on that chemical, I don't care for as much. I'm already fucking loud.
I remember drinking with you a few times.
I'm already loud enough. I don't need any fucking help.
Together we got pretty freaking loud.
I know, dude. And like, I'm way better with pot, right? Like if I smoke a little bit and get, a hair more introvert, me in the corner quiet's a way better fucking vibe than that guy.
Fair enough.
Right.
So you've grown past that guy.
Yeah. Like the Animal House. He had a good time. He's played enough.
So to go back, because this is something that somebody could use.
Yes, please.
Sorry, I forgot about the smoking thing.
Yeah.
I was drinking made me think of that. When I started smoking, obviously I'd gotten an addiction to that, and at some point I was like, I want to get rid of this because first off, it's a waste of money. Second, it's fucking gross. It's really unpleasant to have ashes in my truck everywhere. So I tried a trick that I saw in a movie called A Clockwork Orange. You ever seen that?
I'm very familiar.
Yeah, I kind of figured you would know that one. So they had classical conditioning, essentially, where they took this kid who was really violent.
Yeah, they did the whole Beethoven's Fifth with the music. And
they held the eyes open. They injected him with something that made him really sick to his stomach and then force-fed him violent images.
Yeah, right.
So when he was out in the world and he saw violence happen, he'd start to get that sick feeling again. So I thought, well, there's an idea. Here, I'm not going to take something that's going to make me violently ill, but every time I look at one of these, I'm going to make myself gag a little bit.
Oh.
Heave just until I feel like my stomach kind of turn. Then I'm going to light it, and I'm going to keep doing it every time I take a puff.
Very fantastic process.
By 2-3 weeks, I would light it up, and it would start happening on its own.
Really?
It was like...
You Pavlovian'd yourself.
I did.
Pavlov's dogged yourself into hating
exactly
cigarettes. Incredible.
So by the time I'd get it to my mouth and inhale, I would imagine it suffocating me. And after that 3-week mark, it would really feel like it was suffocating me. And now I've gotten to the point where if somebody lights up next to me, I start feeling that suffocation. I'm like, I got to get away from you, man.
What a fascinating thing to do to yourself. And then be even weirder to be more excited that you pull it off.
Well, I never said I was normal. So.
No, shit, man. I'm not interested in chatting with normal people.
But the experiment was a success.
Yeah.
And I thought, I'm going to apply this to the real shit, the real problem, to the meth over here.
Okay.
And so when I would shoot up, because I would do that frequently at this time, I would feel this burning
So a few
sensation.
times a day? Or is
depending on the day,
Yeah, I guess
times.
I just didn't know how long does it work. I know by
Depends on
taking
how
it
hard you
intravenous.
wanna go.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, I never hit really freaking hard like some people where they lose their minds, and I was pretty coherent. Well, I was pretty coherent as long as I wasn't like 4 or 5 days deep. Yeah, once you get past that 3-day mark, everything gets a little
The edges get a little dancey.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Psychosis kicks in.
The sleep's a tricky one too. If you get rid of sleep on top of other things.
That's exactly it. I mean, because you're up, I'd be up 6-7 days in a row.
Fucking hell.
And
what are you doing?
That's a good question. That's a great question. What the fuck are you doing?
What do you do
I would
for
say
6 straight
those
days?
exact words. Travis, what the fuck are we doing? Like I'm sitting here tearing apart a printer that I picked up out of a trash pile because I would drive around and I'd find things to either scrap or refurbish and resell. I had a little business going.
And so making money that way too.
That's how I'd make money. Yeah.
Are you still training online clients?
No, at this point I wouldn't even walk in a gym. I couldn't
you couldn't do anything.
working out. During that, there's a 4-year period where I didn't train at all.
So just income wise, whatever you can.
Yeah, I was scraping. I was full on drug addict, and I was living in my house that was being foreclosed on actively, and I would fight it with a bankruptcy every 6 or 8 months. So I ended up living in that house for 2 years without paying a dime.
That's fucking incredible. and they'll just keep as long as you pay the electric and power, they don't give a shit.
Which was one of those things. I would usually pay the electric bill. I ended up on one of those month-to-month things. So, it would get cut off, and I'm like, oh, shit, I got to pay that and pay it. Water was a different thing. Water was a little more difficult to keep up. They get real pissy when they shut your water off, and then you go out and you turn it back on.
You just,
So
it's not rocket science.
I did that a few times. They took the meter out.
They do that.
I put a nipple in, a little 8-inch tube or pipe in there. I'd put that in, turn it back on. And, it would work for a little while until somebody came by at 5 a.m. and caught me again. And then I get a huge fine. And I did that enough times that they actually ripped the line out down to the street so that there was no way for me to hook up anything. And that was in the summer of like 2015 or 2014. So I didn't have water for 3 months. I had to drive out, find a faucet or a hose on the side of some building that was closed for the night. And I'd have all these plastic containers in the bed of my truck. I'd fill them all up, have about 1,000 pounds of water sloshing
around. That's for
around.
shower, fucking everything.
Yeah, for shower.
Yeah.
I'd fill up my bathtub so that I could use that water to flush the toilet, or I could use that water to, eat, drink, whatever.
Now, and how quickly have you normalized that behavior is like, well, this is just what we're doing?
Well, you just adapt, when it's survival.
Sure.
You just kind of roll in. Well, I guess my water's off. Need to find a solution. So if it rained, I'd put those same containers out on the side of the house and let the runoff from the roof fill them up.
Wow.
And I remember finding in one of the the trash piles. There was, sometimes you'd find gold where somebody would clean out their house and they would have all this stuff just sitting out there. And I found unopened box of Brita water filters. I didn't have a pitcher, but I did have gallon jugs. So I kind of cut the gallon jug and I duct taped the pitcher so that it would fit. I could fill the top and let the water soak down into the bottom. And, just tweaker innovation.
Everything we hear about meth.
Oh, God, dude, it's just, it goes back to that, what the hell are you doing, Travis? Just so often. And then the people that you surround yourself with are other people that are in the same boat doing stupid shit.
Yep.
And,
it's a lot of truth there, right? Like, you do find yourself within a crowd of the people doing the shit you're doing. And so, there's some truth to it. If you can find a crowd that is, like, all of people doing shit that's in the direction you want to be going, it's helpful. It's really hard to be like, I'm going to get my shit together while all my friends are also doing meth.
That's exactly right.
You just fucking can't.
Well, we would talk about it. I had a couple friends who were like, let's, love and light, and let's figure out a way to better ourselves. And the topic of quitting the meth never came up.
Never.
But bettering ourselves and bringing joy into the world, that was a topic with a couple of my friends. And so I kind of expanded upon that. And I wanted to quit the meth because it just destroyed my life.
Right. You still see that.
Yeah, I did see that. On the one hand, I'm living in the house that I lived in with my family. So I still have my son's room.
Yeah.
And there's always pain every time I walk in the door. You just reminded of all these things. Sometimes you kind of numb over it and you forget about it and you move on with your life, but it still kicks you here and there. And so I'd look around and I'd see my house and what it became. It became a tweaker house. There was just shit everywhere.
Just shit everywhere.
Just crap. And
if you're dumpster diving, rarely are those people also very organized and meticulous in putting stuff that they collect away.
Well, I was organized. It just wasn't very. It was chaotic organization. Sure. I had piles of this kind of stuff here, and I had in my living room so that I could watch a movie. I had all the scrap things that I was tearing apart, sitting right there on the floor in the living room.
Ready to work.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And I had a little bin for this type of metal, a bin for that type of metal, and then I'd go to work with a hammer and a screwdriver and. Oh, God, dude, that was one of the things. I lost so much strength.
Sure.
But tearing those things apart, because if I found a printer, I would try to tear it apart with my bare hands just to see if I could. So I didn't lose a lot of grip strength.
That's good. Good to know. Good to know training was still
find
there.
The positives, man. Always look for the bright side. But, yeah, after, I would say, implementing that kicking the smoking habit technique, after about a year.
So you want to kick meth with this group of people, and are they not interested?
Oh, yeah. None of them were.
They don't see that as the problem.
Exactly.
Perfect. Okay.
At least I saw that meth was the issue.
That. Yeah.
And a lot of them, I'm like, well, we probably should quit this fucking meth use. I'm like, oh, man, that's not the problem. The problem's this over here, blah, blah, blah.
Problem's the rest of the world.
Are you fucking kidding me?
Yeah, the meth may be part of it.
Yeah, I think it's got a big part of, just whatever. There's only so much logic you can start to try and throw at somebody who's tweaking really hard before you're just talking to a wall. But I remember one time in particular, this is after I'd implemented the trying to choke myself while smoking meth. I stopped shooting pretty quick because I would imagine fire going up my arm, and I felt that pretty vividly, pretty quick. And so I reverted to smoking.
Back to smoking,
and so I'd kind of stepped it down a little bit. But one of the people got really upset because I had started to find gratitude in everything that I could. So, here I've got this, the choking technique to try and, what do we call Pavlov myself into classically condition myself into stopping. And then I'm trying to throw gratitude on the other side of it. And how I found gratitude is kind of an interesting story. It was a turning point for me. But anyway, I remember having these thoughts of like trying to be grateful all the time. And this one woman, I guess we were having a conversation. I was telling her, you know, you need to look at it this way. Find something to be grateful for with your life, because, you know, you don't have a bad life. And she's looking at me going with this snarl on her face, what do you have to be so grateful for? And that's when I realized, I was like, oh shit, this is rocking the boat. This is really creating some different momentum that is shaking these people's foundations.
Right.
I must really be getting somewhere now.
Yeah.
And
interesting that you find that takeaway from it, not go the other way, right? Because a lot of people they're not leaning into that.
Well, most people would probably fall right into the peer pressure and go, oh yeah, you're probably right, and let that beat them down.
Well, people are already broken.
Yeah. And, you know, I guess my saving grace was probably always having that guy in the back, because when I really, truly needed confidence, bravery, it was there.
Well, you've already done some incredible things, right? Like, you've already been able to prove to yourself by that point in your life that you're capable of fucking incredible things.
Yeah, I guess I've done some pretty cool shit.
Well, I mean, but think about if you don't have that background and you still get to where you're at. Like, you don't have any self-proof. You don't have any self-confidence that you can overcome.
No wins in the
There's
in the
no
column.
wins, dude.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's easier to beat yourself down and accept that as reality.
Yeah, I mean, even that, like talking about gratitude, right? Gratitude to the fact that I ever got to do this shit.
Yeah. It's powerful.
Dude, most people don't.
And it gets worse in today's world where everybody is so, they got this victim mentality. Where my struggle is worse. My life is harder. My ancestors had it worse. Like, you know what? I understand you can have things that start you off at a lower point, but if that is the basis of your personality and that is your reason for being where you are, that's bullshit.
It's bullshit.
It's total bullshit. It's a cop-out. And all you're doing is looking for an excuse for mediocrity. And, you know, I call people on that, and they don't like that usually.
Most people don't. Most people don't. I'm a big fan of hearing it. I've needed that for myself. You know what I mean? Like, fucking get your shit together. I mean, dude, and so fortunate for where we are in life. I mean, you know, after, you know, fuck, man, you've got to travel a ton. And I think about it most recently being in Dubai, and then this trip to Zimbabwe beforehand, and just seeing the world at different places. And, dude, being born in 1983 in the USA to my parents is the best starting place.
Yeah.
I've hit par. I've done nothing exceptional since then. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm very proud of what I've done, but, like, you know, I didn't overcome figuring out how to get to the U.S. from Haiti to open a business.
Fair point.
My starting blocks were already here.
You know,
and I'm not a comparison guy either, because people get into that, and that becomes so competitive that, like, well, my bad's worse than your bad.
That's where they get that victim mentality really kicks up.
And it sucks, man. And I think that's a really, really tricky one. Because I'll get messages from people about knees or pain, and it's, well, my knee's really bad, but it's nothing like yours. And I'm like, yo, that doesn't make your knee not hurt.
Exactly. Like, can you still function?
Yeah.
Are you able,
it doesn't matter.
You're
We're
obviously
in the same boat.
writing me for some reason.
I know, but they'll already downplay where they are going into it. And, like, no, that's not the way to gratitude either.
I get the same things with people. Like, I'm having a hard time. You know, I've heard your story, and, you know, mine's nowhere near as bad as yours. And I'm like, it's good. Yeah. So be grateful for that. You got one step up already. Now let's work on the rest, you know?
Yeah. For sure, man.
So, you know, the things that I learned during, well, for starters, just, you know, growing up and getting where I got before Strongman. And then when I found Strongman and having passion for something that just lit my soul on fire. And then to lose that and lose that man in the mirror, you don't recognize yourself anymore, and then fall into that depression and literally, falling into the depths of hell. Because I don't think that hell is a place. I think it is inside your mind. It's a construct of what is your hell. And I had the opportunity to talk with the devil. He was telling me I was done. He said, "You're done. When are you ready to give up?" And I remember the moment, because I had a gun in my mouth. I was sitting on the side of my bathtub. I'd lost my house. Excuse me. I'd gone through some shit that day, and it was another time when I had called to talk to my son, and they didn't answer. And hearing that fucking voicemail pick up
again
it was like a knife to the heart every fucking time. So I was just really down on myself, and I'm sitting there and wanting to end things, and it was like the devil was saying, "Come on, you ready to give up yet? You ready to quit?" And then just something in me kind of turned, and for the first time I got this little spark of fire, defiance maybe. And I put the gun down. I said out loud, I said, I'm not ready to quit yet. And then that moment hit me, and I remember kind of trembling and like, fuck, what the fuck did I just do? Holy shit. I was literally about to fucking end everything. And I remember during that moment, like thinking, if I had shot myself, that poor bastard that I have to clean the brains off the wall. I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to do that. And so I thought this is the moment I found gratitude, because I'm sitting there going, how did my life get to this? How did my world evolve into this? And I remember looking around, and I'm seeing all this shit in my bedroom was a mess. My bathroom was kind of trashed. I had sold the panel off the side of my bathtub. For $60. I have no idea to this day what that was worth, but whatever.
Here we go.
But anyway, so I'm sitting there in this mess, in this sadness, this prison of sadness and despair, and I'm thinking, how did my life get here? And then I started just this little checklist of, I'd lost this, I lost that, lost my friends, lost my family. They all turned their back on me. I lost my career, I lost my passion, I lost my love for training. And I noticed that I had a checklist of loss. And it was something that I was unconscious or unaware of until that moment. I said, I do this all the time. I go through and I see, I lost this, I lost that. I'm losing my house, because I'd been foreclosed on at that point. And I couldn't file bankruptcy anymore, so I really lost it. And they were about to evict me a couple weeks after this. And I thought, well, shit, man, it seems like every time I go through this checklist, I add one more thing to it. And it gets worse and worse and worse. So I noticed something. It's like every time I'm going through the checklist, it's spiraling downward, and my life is getting worse and worse and worse. Let's find something good to hold on to. And I remember looking around, and I couldn't find anything. And I almost caught myself going into that checklist again. I'm trying to find this positive. I'm going, well, I lost that. Oh, my room looks like shit. There's trash here. This is broken. Wait a second, Trav. Wait. Cut it. What are we grateful for? What is there good in your life? And I remember giving up for a second. And I put my head in my hands, and I see my toes down here kicking around, and went, well, shit. That's all I've got right now. I got my own 2 feet. And with my own 2 feet, I can get up, and I don't have to stay in this shit anymore.
No,
I can walk leave right the fuck out of that door, and I'll never look back. And for the first time in years, I got this surge of joy. It came out of the pit of my stomach and rose. I could feel it like a warmth rising up into my, through my chest, into my throat. It was just joy. For the first time, I felt pure joy. And after being in the darkness for so long with no way out, it was the first time I saw a little tiny dot of light, hope. It was finally hope.
Fuck, man.
And the next day, I went to bed. I woke up the next day, and I remember having that feeling, and I wanted that again. And I started looking around, trying to find something else. And so I remember thinking, simple. I got my own 2 hands. I got my own 2 feet, and I got my own 2 hands, and these hands are still strong. So I can go anywhere, and I can do anything. I can still become whatever I want to be. And that surge came up again. It's like, this is living. Holy shit, this is the secret. So the 3rd day, I found a 3rd thing. The 4th day, I found a 4th thing. And on the 5th day, I didn't find a new thing. So I went back through my 4. And now I've created a gratitude list. So now not only do I have something new to be grateful for, or at least try to be grateful for every day, if I can't find something, I go through the things I do have to be grateful for. And rather than spiraling downward, I'm finally spiraling upward. And I'm getting out of this shit. I'm reversing the momentum. And that took a while.
I fucking bet.
It took a while.
Yeah, this isn't happening in an afternoon.
No, and that's when I started shaking things up. That's when I had that conversation a couple days later with that woman who was saying, what do you have to be so grateful for?
I got my hands.
And that's exactly, I got my hands, got my feet, and I can walk up out of here and I don't have to listen to your shit right now. And
all of a sudden, especially what comes from that, right, is then you realize that, like, it's a choice to be in this room.
Yeah.
I can leave.
Yeah. That's when I realized I have the power. That was the first time I realized that I had power. I can get up and I can get the fuck out of here. The other time I realized I had power, and this is what I tell to anybody who's an addict or knows an addict, own the addiction. Do not call it a disease. It's not a fucking disease. A disease is something you're powerless against. You hope your immune system takes it and gets over it. It's a condition. And it's a condition of your actions. It is a result of your actions. When you realize that, when you accept that it is 100% on you, you take your power back. And then you can fucking do something with it. If you're sitting here trying to be a victim and saying, oh, it's not my fault, you're powerless. You're a victim. You'll never get out of it. When you own that you have the power to change it, you own that it is 100% on you to do something about it. You take that fucking power, and now you can do something back with it.
Dude, I love that so much. Accountability and responsibility to me have been really a driving force in a lot of positivity. No matter really what it is, right? Like whether it was my knee or pain or any of those type of things, like the gratitude of like, I did that. I mean, it didn't just go shit on itself.
Yeah.
I did these things to it, and in that, at no point did I ever think pursuing trying to be the best in the world at any of the strength sports disciplines was healthy. Do you know what I mean? Like I know what we've dived into.
Extremism
and so,
is never really that healthy. You're absolutely right.
No, it's not healthy. Like any of the sports, if you want to compete in them or train for them, can be healthy. If you would like to be the best in the world or pursue max potential, it's not anymore.
It's not going to be healthy. Exactly.
And so
healthy lies in moderation.
Fuck, man, one of my favorite expressions for like coming through a hard time is a buddy of mine, Kelly Starrett, says it. And
I like that guy.
Dude, Kelly's such great people. And he defines it as, whenever my time's up and they cut this tree in half and examine the rings, there was a decade of fire damage. And I'm like, fuck yeah, there is.
I like that.
Fuck yeah, there's a decade of fire damage in there, dude. Like, and for me, like, I love the conversations with the guys like us who've been through fire. Yeah. It's different on the back end.
Yeah.
Especially who still keep training and figuring out a way that, like, it's an important part of me that I have to make peace with, that this has to be done. Like, I need the strength stuff. It's not it's a non-negotiable at this point. Some type of physical training has to be part of my life.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I get real weird.
Yeah. Me too. Me too. Yeah. Well, there's, you get that, I don't know, your body just, it has the energy that it can only go into that. And if it doesn't go into that, it becomes self-destructive, or it becomes, like you say, weird.
Yeah, it took me a long time to figure out how to shift that energy over to the business side of stuff, to doing those things and trying to find the same focus and enjoyment out of it. Because I mean, now being beat up and like I can run and do some other shit and like it's great. I'm super stoked on what my body can do. But training, man, like I like training violent and heavy.
Yeah.
And I can't. And so like I'm aware that like I'll never have another gym PR, and I'll never be able to train the way that I like to train again. And okay. Like I did it, right? Like at the end of the day, I was pursuing to figure out how strong I can be. I figured out those metrics on this machine.
That's a fair point.
It broke. Right?
Well, you reached your absolute.
Yeah, so I found out those things. I can't lie to myself and say I should have trained harder. I can't say I should have eaten different. Like, yeah, this is what I did, and these are the numbers that came from it. I don't get a second run.
You know, and there's wisdom in that, because you never know what your strongest is until you look back.
You only know in hindsight.
Yeah, you
only know that was the day.
Yep.
That was the heaviest squat we're ever going to load up.
I'm hoping that I haven't reached that spot yet, and I don't believe that I have. But I know at some point I'm going to be in that same boat.
Everyone.
You know, and then I can't wait. You know, I look at what you do, like I see you post a picture about riding bike.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I really want to go
ride dude, it's fun.
Mountain bike.
Well, it's interesting kind of getting on the back end, right, and shifting from really specific training and being only really good at one thing, which would be throwing.
Yeah.
To now, like I can go for a trail run or I can go for a longer bike ride. Like my options
go
now are much wider. Yeah. And that part's cool, man. That actually now getting to explore the world and adventure and use the physical thing for more perspective shift. Like more like, let's go see what that place is like.
Growth.
Yeah, and not only that,
in
like
a different direction.
Yo, find things I suck at again. Like that's why I ended up doing this Bryce Canyon trail run. I ended up doing a 20-mile trail run in May on the fake knee. And I've never fucking run. I'm not a runner. I've never jogged as part of training. Do you know what I mean? And so
I don't remember you being a runner.
No, even putting the program together for 12 or 16 weeks of whatever it was of like, so today, 5 days a week, we're going to go do an hour of one run walk. And there isn't an expectation of output. It's just an intention of, I want you to run as far as you can today. I trust you as a lunatic who runs this machine that if you say we need to walk, we probably need to walk. Right? Like,
do you have this conversation with
Fuck yeah, dude. Constantly. It's always inside. There's a big separation between me, which is the spirit, and the machine that I'm operating. Because the rules of the machine's operation have changed a lot over the decades.
That's funny.
But it's still the same machine.
So you kind of, I totally get that.
Yeah.
I totally get that. It's like the Travis back here and the Travis out here. It's, you know, it's just your own unique way of putting that whole story together.
Yeah. It's whatever works for that perspective shift, dude. Dude, we're solid run into this. Where if people are looking for online training, how do they find you?
Best way is either Travis_Ortmayer on Instagram or Texas Stoneman, all one word, .com.
Hell yeah, dude.
Yeah, go to my contacts page, hit me up. And
man, look, if you ever get out to St. Louis, dude, I'd love to have you and come in the studio and we can record again. Dude, I think your story is really important, dude.
I appreciate that.
I'm happy to have known you as long as that we have.
Turned into a while.
Fucking know, right? Apparently, you just keep showing up, and eventually, there's only so many of us left around.
Man. But you know, I like the ones that are still around.
Same.
I do.
Yeah, there's a bit of the lifers to it, right? That like you see those guys, and you're like, the same as like Thick Pen or
different gears.
Yeah, guys that we've just been around a long time in it.
Yeah.
I mean. Fuck, I mean, even occasionally now I'll see Dion or, Dion Wessels or any of that. And I don't know if she's
Dion
still
Masters.
Dion Masters,
yeah.
Okay.
I make that mistake too.
I'm fucking bad with names, dude. But like seeing her, like, oh man, that was a fun chapter in life whenever I got to meet them and like travel to contest and do the strongman thing. It just wasn't the best fit for me when Highland Games showed up. I mean, fuck, the first Highland Games we all did together.
I remember that, and I think we all got the flu.
Yeah, we all got sick. sick.
Yeah.
Yeah. We all went out and competed in Jackson, Louisiana in the amateur, in that novice division. With me, you, and Andy all went out together and threw.
I think I won the weight over bar, and oddly enough, it was either the Braemar or I think it was one of the heavy throwing events.
It's very possible
that I won. And
I don't remember.
Then you got really good, and your brother got really good.
Yeah, man.
This was way at the beginning of
having a background throwing in college is cheating going into the sport.
Oh, yeah. Well, I remember watching you and Andy, and you just looked like, like ice skaters, like spinning. And it
lot of repetition.
Just smooth and effortless and like pretty.
Yeah, it's a lot of repetition, which is why the sport worked out well for me, because it was such a technical sport in comparison to strongman. Like I just couldn't put on the side. I couldn't do it.
Yeah,
I didn't have the skeleton to support being that heavy to get strong enough.
There's freaks now too.
I know, man. I remember the first time I ran into Hapthor. I was in Iceland, and they had just done like we have a new local guy who's coming out. It's pretty big. He's going to do a keg over bar with us. And I'm like, we're going to throw a keg over bar. And dude, I'm cocky. Fucking cocky at this time. Like I'm kicking ass at the Highland Games, right? And I'm like, I'm going to let this fucking guy come out here, non-thrower, and come have part of it, right? Like I'll beat him with technique. That's how this whole thing works. I always have.
Yeah, sure.
He gets out of there, and we do a keg over bar. Dude, I think he beat me by like almost 4 meters.
Like, oh, God.
It's just like,
oh, God.
I just sit here over at the kids' table fucking like an idiot.
That's
and at that point, I was like,
he's good at the keg or weight for height. He's
a talented dude, man. It was fun. It was fun being in Dubai, watching him fight. I'm very curious to see if he and Eddie will ever actually fight.
I'm curious to see that also.
Yeah. I think Hapthor will be ready.
You think so?
Oh, yeah. Hapthor will not be the side of that equation that doesn't show up for the fight.
Well, over the last year and a half, whatever it is, I've watched him progress. And it is a steady progression.
And not only that, he's taking fights.
He's getting better and better. And yeah, I'm impressed. I got to hand it to him.
I mean, just without even watching a ton of training from either guy, like I still just look at it as, if Hapthor's now had 4 fights.
Is it 4?
4. And is taking another one relatively pretty soon. Is going back to Scotland to continue training and like be ready for the Eddie fight in March. And if Eddie hasn't taken a fight, just the experience of getting in the ring with another guy at that point it's heavy.
Yeah.
Like you know how it goes. You already know so much more than the next dude.
You can have all the training in the world. None of it matters if you've never experienced being on the stage.
Being on the stage.
I mean, I guess some of it matters, but yeah, being on the stage, that's what I tell my clients. They're like, I want to get stronger for the next year before I compete. And I'm like, fuck that.
Go compete,
dude. Go. You're only going to practice competing at a competition.
It's crazy that people miss that, right? That like being a competitor is a skill.
Yeah.
Like you have to learn how to turn it on and how to manage your full day of competing because
exactly.
They're long days.
It's different than training.
And not only that, you can't stay fucking jacked for 7 hours at a competition. You have to be able to cycle up and cycle down and be able to chill out and turn back on.
That took me a while to figure out.
It's a tough skill.
Some of my first shows, I remember just being completely wrecked.
But like event 3.
And I've got 2 more events and I fire up and I go through it anyway. And I remember taking 4 or 5 days to recover. Not physically, but mentally.
Yeah, your CNS is just garbage.
Just gone. Yeah. But as I do it, I've done close to 100 contests now.
Yeah, I would figure yours has got to be up there. The Highland Games thing is weird because we can compete so often. So you figure like in the time I did it, we'd have about a 6-month season and I would compete like 22, 23 times.
Wow. The most I ever did in a year was 18.
Right,
I did that a couple times, which is
gnarly.
Stupid. It's
like
stupid
you and
for
Zadrunas.
Yeah. And I mean, Big Z would have his local shows that he could kind of use as a training day,
Right.
Mine, I'd have to go over to Europe and then fly back and then go over to another one in Europe. And it was miserable.
So what's next? What's next show?
I qualified just this past weekend for the Champions League finals.
Oh, nice.
So Strongman Champions League, it'll be in Alanya, Turkey, which is beautiful.
I haven't been to Turkey yet.
Well, this, I can't speak for all of Turkey, but the portion that I saw is beautiful. Antalya, Alanya, it's all on the Mediterranean coast.
And I mean, man, you've got to travel the world.
Dude, I've seen 34 countries.
That's incredible.
6 continents on somebody else's dime.
Incredible.
It's awesome.
For picking up heavy shit.
For lifting shit. That's
what
exactly
a ridiculous.
That's what I tell people. I'm like, God, I get paid to work out in other countries.
No, man.
You know, for as much as I've been through the ups and the downs, I am so grateful for the life that I've got.
Dude, same.
For all the pain, because it makes all the joy that much better.
Dude, that perspective shift for me too, from the being bummed out and being hurt to that again, knowing that the time would come to an end anyway for any athlete, but being able to be stoked that, I mean, not only did I find a passion that I applied full gas to, and it just gave back.
That's awesome.
Right. And then
so that's really cool.
I got to travel around and do it with my brother.
Yeah.
And that time ended, and I got really bummed like whenever that was over, because our relationship changed a lot. Because I mean, we worked for the same company and then competed together every weekend. Like, we see each other nonstop.
Yeah.
And then I don't work for the company, and then I'm not competing. Like,
that's
we have a lot less in common.
Yeah. Oh, really?
Not like we don't have a ton in common, but there's a lot less reason to pick up the phone and call each other every day, because I mean, we still worked for the same company, so we talked anyway.
Yeah, that's an interesting thought right there.
And that bummer, being bummed about that relationship change, and then realizing like, no one gets to travel around with their brother and compete in other countries. Like, I can't believe I ever got to do this.
Yeah. And
so just being stoked on that
cool.
chapter ever got to exist.
That's pretty cool, because your brother's a pretty cool guy.
Andy's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, Andy's great, dude. That's he's still League City.
Is he? Okay.
Yeah, still League City there at family and doing the whole thing.
Trainer.
Oh, still trains. Still healthy. I mean, he's lost a bunch of weight. Like, he's down. I don't think he can consistently get under 270, he said. Like, that's the window he's fighting. He sits about like 275-ish. He's a fucking big kid.
Yeah.
And
so I kind of got down to 270 pretty quickly, and then hung out there for a while.
Right.
And then it was like hard pressed to start losing more weight after that.
Yeah, see, mine went like, my best, like when I did strongman, I got up to about 318, and then that was the biggest. Wasn't good.
That's big on your frame.
It wasn't great.
That's really big.
It wasn't great at all.
I mean, you're not a small guy,
no,
but
fuck,
that's
dude.
Big.
No, I've got a photo of like where I'm that big, and I'm like, I look like memory foam. Like, it's fucking square, dude. No way you don't just leave an imprint in me when you pull your hand back out.
Oh, that's awesome. That's a fucking hell of a visual right there.
But like now, sitting kind of in the mid low 230s is where I stay.
230s?
Yeah.
Okay.
And
how do you feel?
Feel great. I mean, it's also nice it's a bit of burn the bridges or burn the boats, right? Like, I don't have to worry about going back to heavy, strong stuff.
Yeah.
I'm too small. It's great.
Yeah, fair enough. When I started training again, I had moved from Houston after I had gotten kicked out of my house. I ended up staying in the storage unit, where we trained. I lived there for a couple months.
Weird feeling.
It was weird, yeah, because, I mean, they'd see me at my peak, and then they saw me at my absolute bottom.
So you just sneaking in at night?
No, they just kind of looked the other way. I remember the first night I was there, I legit was trying to, like, organize things, because I had a truck bed full of stuff, and I was trying to make room for all the stuff that they confiscated and were ransoming back from me after. Gotcha. When you're evicted, they come in and they take your stuff, and then you can go and pay to get it back. It's bullshit, but anyway. So there I was trying to fill or make room in the storage unit all night. And I remember the owner, it was Linda and Steve comes over to me and goes, Travis, you can't stay here. I was like, oh, no, not what I was
never do that.
Never, man, no. Because they knew I had just been kicked out of my house, and I talked to them the day before, but Linda finally told me after a couple months, she's like, well, I just kind of thought of you as one of my stray cats. You just kind of come around and we put some water out for you, and you hang around and leave when you want, and there's not too much, we're not asking anything. And
As long as you're not causing any problems to the business.
That's exactly what it was. I lived there, and I was living there so that I could save money to move to Reno.
Sure.
My parents had moved to Reno a couple years before. My mom had gotten liver failure earlier that summer. This is 2015. She had gotten liver failure, and at the end of 2015 is when I was in the storage unit. So I was doing my little, resale business.
Sure.
And I was trying to save money as fast as I could because my parents wouldn't send me any, and I don't, whatever.
At that point.
Yeah. So I chose to live there on a 2.5 by 3 foot plyo box with a yoga mat folded up on top, and I would put my feet up on the shelf that I had built behind it. And I slept there every night and saved money as fast as I could. After about 2 months, I'd saved up enough. I had one last task that I had to do before I could leave, and I had to paint my truck. Because my truck, I have a 2003 Dodge Dakota. I still have it. I love this truck. I have a nice car now, but I could not get rid of the truck.
Sure.
Too much history. But in those years, they had shitty paint jobs. So the sun burnt the paint off of it.
Okay.
So at one point in the middle of tweakerdom, I was going to strip it down and paint it.
Okay.
Well, I got the strip it down part.
I got halfway there.
And then I ran out of primer and never really went to the store and got more. And I just kind of forgot about the project.
Sure.
So I had this halfway primered, halfway stripped truck. It looked like it had been through a war. And I just wasn't going to drive across the country in that.
Makes sense. So
I had bought a sprayer, several months before with the intention of spraying it, a nice outdoor, paint sprayer. So finally, on Christmas Day, I got around to finally finishing. It took me a few days because in typical tweaker fashion, I would tape the windows up, tape all the mirrors up and all that. And by the time I got it all taped, it was too late in the day to start spraying. And then I would get hungry, so I'd have to pull the tape off.
To leave?
Go and get something
God
to eat.
damn it.
And then I had to start the process again the next day. So I was a couple days of doing that stupid shit before I finally got to the point where I could spray it. And I sprayed it with a high gloss. And it just looked horrendous. I could see every nick and dent, and Steve came over.
This wasn't the wet sanded finish that you were laying on.
Steve came over and goes, well, it's shiny.
It's shiny.
Then he just walked off, rolling his cigarette and smoking it, laughing at me.
It just looked wet.
So I kind of sanded it down a little bit, and I mixed, flat black, about a 70-30 flat to gloss, and it actually came out really good. I could be proud of it. And I mean, As soon as the paint dried, I was off, and it was Boxing Day. It was the day after Christmas Day that I took off driving across the country. And this is kind of a cool story. I'll keep it short, but it was a 2-day trip that I took 10 days to finish because I slept where I wanted to sleep.
Yeah.
I took what little meth I had left with me, and I had the intention of tapering down and never buying any more. So I'd gotten rid of my contacts. I was moving to a place where I didn't have any. I wasn't going to find any. So I was tapering down, and I told myself I'm going to sleep, stop, do whatever I want, whenever I want. And New Year's Day, or New Year's Eve, I went into the Grand Canyon, pulled off to the side of the road to take a nap. Woke up New Year's Day to the sun coming up over the rim of the canyon, laid out in front of me. You talk about a new beginning.
Yeah, man.
Oh, dude, it was awesome. Then a
Grand
few days
Canyon's
later,
special.
Oh, it's something else, man. That and Zion. I went to Zion, stayed there for a couple days. Got to Reno. Decided I was going to go to the gym. January 15th, I walked into the gym for the first time in 4 years. Now, when I started my strongman career, my journey in strongman, I was 227 pounds.
Okay.
I was a week before my 21st birthday. I could have competed in the lightweights, but I chose to go heavyweight. Had the time of my life. It changed my life. But I was 227 pounds. Somewhere in the midst of all that chaos and pain, I remember saying, when is this going to be over with? And that little guy in the back of my head, he piped up and said, you're going to start over. And I knew what that meant. It meant I was going to lose everything I had gotten through my life in strongman. Right down to the fucking pound.
Yep.
The first day I walked into that gym, I was 227 pounds.
Fucking no way.
Yeah. I mean, we're talking over 100 pounds of body weight lost. You know, it was not an easy task. I had to be really fucked up and eat once every day and a half or so to get there. But yeah, I looked like one of those skinny gray aliens. You know, the big head, the tiny body.
Holy shit, man.
But that was my start back. And
well, I know you ran into like Desiree Morgan out here.
Yeah.
Desiree's been a friend a long time.
Yeah, she came out and trained with us.
Yep, she's great.
Several times. She's probably one of the sweetest people I've ever met in my life.
Incredible human.
Yeah.
Incredible people.
I think it was probably my second year of training that she moved out here and started training with us. So
you've just been at American Iron, right?
Yeah.
Or is it American Iron?
American Iron. In
okay,
Reno,
I thought so.
Nevada.
Yeah. It's a great gym.
It's an awesome gym.
There were a couple powerlifters I knew from there. I knew a guy, Jesse. So bad with last name.
Yeah.
Big fella.
Jesse and Jeremy.
Yes.
Yeah. They're neither one really powerlifts anymore, but
such is life.
That's kind of the way things go.
Yeah,
I guess.
that's how it goes, man. I mean, it's not a forgiving sport for the long term.
Yeah, exactly.
Also, it doesn't pay very well.
Well, you know, it takes a special breed to really go full retard and
full
go down
retard for sure, dude.
Go down that path and stay down that path for a long time. And here I am 20 years into it. I got no room to talk.
But man, what about people that don't find anything in their whole fucking path, right? That they just did the thing in front of them. There wasn't any of this obsession. There wasn't any of this fucking
purpose.
What is
it's finding purpose.
Yeah, there was never this thing.
People ask, you know, what is the reason we're here? You know, what is my reason for being? It's to find purpose. It's to find, in other words, you got to search your soul and try a bunch of things, figure out what really lights you up, what you're good at and what you want to do and spend your time doing and pursue it.
Yeah, I know, like, I need a carrot to chase.
Yeah.
It's been really hard even with training because, I mean, again, I'm not training to get stronger. And I don't know how much I like training for the sake of training. I'm really bad at it. I just go in and I'm like, the fuck do we even do here?
Goals. Gotta have some kind of goals, man.
It's like, I just do what I can today to not hurt more.
Well,
like, is it part stretching, part...
When you've learned those things, you have expanded your mind into that realm where you now need to have goals, have carrots, have something to chase. You know, for some people, purpose may be raising a good family.
Yeah. I mean, look, and I'm glad that we live in a time that we can all pick various ones. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, at any point in time, I guess you kind of have to assess what the reality of your situation is and then find your purpose within the confines of that reality. But, you know, when you find a purpose, a reason to live, you got a reason to get up every day. You got reasons to move forward. You got reasons to quit addiction.
And you have a reason to problem solve. Like
which
to
is
me,
kind of what our brain is hardwired to do.
Right. I do good with, like, I like having puzzles to solve.
Yeah.
And it's, you know, well, how do I figure this part of food out while I'm figuring out this part of training? But I'm also tired, so I need to figure out where I can get more rest without putting more damage on the system. Like, it's always a balance, and then that target's moving depending on age.
age and whatever's going on.
Yeah, life.
Life is great at throwing variables at you.
Fuck is it, dude? Yeah, it is. Well, brother, look, man, I appreciate your time so much, Travis, and we'll get you out to St. Louis, too. We'll definitely do this.
That'd be great, man.
Dude,
is that where you're at now?
Yeah, in St. Louis, man.
Okay.
Me and Bonnie are there. I moved there a couple years ago after divorce and those type of things. Got out of Louisiana, and here we go.
Yeah, just needed a new beginning.
It's time to start over. Same thing.
Yeah.
My tenure in Louisiana was done.
Fair point. Get out of that humidity.
It's time. It's time for a change, man. I got fortunate to get out and still have close relationships. Even me and my ex are friends, and it was just we didn't need to continue that route anymore.
You know what? When two people can come to that conclusion,
I'm very fortunate. I'm really fortunate that I can still call her an ally.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. Well, brother, thank you for this.
Dude, thanks for having me, man. It's been fun.
Yeah, we'll
been
do
a lot
this
of fun
again.
catching up.
Travis, I appreciate it, brother.